validity behind that. What happened to Hillary Clinton? What happened to Barbara Walters? Black people do the math. Turn Muslim.
There you go, Kevin. Well, Kevin, we got to run, brother. Thank you very much for that call, though. Connect the dots is what it's really all about. It's also about we. What are we going to do? What are we going to stand up and fight against? You going to stand there and take it all the time? No. It's about we, us. You protect the dreamers, no doubt about it. Anyway, I'm Bob Slade. Keep a good thought. And you guys and gals, have a good day. Don't forget, I want to thank our producer, executive producer, Fatim Muhammad. There you go. Go ahead, Brother Fatim. Looking up those stories. And our technical producer, the one and only, the fall guy, Lee Majors. As I always say, adios and parting. Bye-bye.
The views and opinions expressed on this broadcast are not necessarily those of either WGCV 620 AM, its staff or management, or our parent company, Glory Communications Incorporated.
South Carolina, the nation, and the world. We put it all in perspective with Armstrong Williams up next on WGCV 620 AM.
I remember the moment.
I'll never forget that moment.
As long as I live.
As long as I live.
That moment, we arrived on the scene.
The storm had nearly destroyed the area.
This was our own community. Friends, family, people we grew up with, went to school with. We were there to help.
Several of us were working to rescue a family.
They made it down to the storm cellar, but the house collapsed on top of the cellar door and trapped them.
We had chainsaws going, and we had to use Humvees and heavy machinery to move massive trees and debris.
We got them out.
We helped a lot of people out.
It felt good to know I could really make a difference.
Right here, close to home, in my state.
It was one of those life-changing moments where I realized I am making a difference in these people's lives and mine. I'm a citizen soldier in the National Guard.
You can serve part-time and be there the moment your community needs you. Learn more at NationalGuard.com.
Sponsored by the South Carolina National Guard, aired by the South Carolina Broadcasters Association and this station.
Madison Davis.
Renovations in homes built before 1978 can spread lead paint dust.
Good God! I got to ask you what we need. Soul food. Henry Soul Food. No, we need it. Soul food. Henry Soul Food. No, I like it. Soul food. Henry Soul Food. No, we need it. Soul food. Henry Soul Food. Hit me.
Home of the sweet potato pie. Even the keenest taste buds will tell you the best food on the planet. Large enough to serve you and small enough to know you. So get to Henry's at 5431 Indian Head Highway, Oxon Hill, Maryland, or give us a call at 301-749-6856.
Soul food. Henry Soul Food. What we need. Soul food. Henry Soul Food.
Welcome to the Armstrong Williams Show, brought to you by Golden Crust Bakery, the fastest growing Caribbean-owned franchise in the United States. Golden Crust is committed to the delivery of quality food and excellent customer service. Visit them today at goldencrustbakery.com. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this edition of Armstrong Williams' live show. Thank you so much for joining us. Wow. So, what's in the news? You got to talk close to the mic. I know you don't do this often, but you got to get like you're about to kiss it. Like this, where the star is.
Like this?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what's in the news right now is that Obama and
our
family,
president
our President Obama and family are going to Martha's Vineyard on a 7.6 million house. This is right after they just went on a $100 million trip to Africa.
They were paying for it. They're staying at somebody else's house.
Well, yeah.
Or they're renting a house.
Yeah. Well,
are they renting a house? Or are
they had rented a place, but it was not available, so they're just staying in someone's house, and they're paying $7.6 million to stay in there.
$7.6 million to stay there?
That's how much it cost. Yeah.
But are they paying that? They're not paying $7.6 million. That's
impossible.
impossible.
It can't be. So you would.
So what are they paying?
The story just says it costs $7.6 million.
What costs?
So.
That's what the house costs. But obviously, Obama's not paying anything. So what's wrong with that?
Yeah. Well, what's wrong with that is the fact that here he is, saying that the top 2% have to pay their fair share. They need to pay more to.
Well, what does that have to do with staying at somebody's house on vacation?
Well, if he practiced what he preached, he wouldn't be going to like these lavish.
But he's the president.
Vacations.
I mean, it probably has best situation for security. It's isolated. Don't you want your president to be safe and secure from an attack or anything crazy happening?
Well, I do, but there's a difference between going to Martha's Vineyard versus just going back home.
But he usually goes to Martha's Vineyard.
He does, and that's the problem. He shouldn't be. It's different.
Why? That's what he wants to do on his vacation time. What's wrong with that? You're nitpicking now.
I don't consider it nitpicking.
I do.
Well, I guess we disagree on that, but I just feel that, everyone else is struggling and he's just having a grand old time partying while we're like $17 trillion in debt, at least, not including $90 trillion in unfunded liabilities. I just view it as the height of hypocrisy, in my opinion.
Some people disagree with you, kind sir.
I know.
Now Jamal has finally decided to tell me that our guest is holding. So, Stephen Kanne, how are you today? Stephen? Oh, wow, he hung up. That's funny. The guest hung up. Isn't that crazy?
That is crazy, yeah.
Okay, so what else is going on in the news?
Well,
but I didn't know the guest was holding because I didn't see it on the screen. Okay?
Right.
Okay,
it happens.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
It happens. Well, right now the Clintons are very livid at the fact that they're being compared to the Wieners, Anthony Weiner and Huma Abedin, and they're livid about it, frankly, because right now the Wieners basically are a joke. That whole situation is it
is really embarrassing.
It's really embarrassing, yeah, especially with the way Huma is standing by her man. At first, when the 2011, when the first Wiener scandal happened, at that time you felt sympathy for Huma, but this time, now that she's still standing by her man after he said he stopped.
But doesn't the Bible say for better or for worse, in sickness and in health until death us do part? So what's wrong with her standing by her husband? Isn't that the vow she took?
I mean, it is their decision, but
isn't that the vow she took?
It is, but he broke their vow, so it doesn't seem.
But the Bible says for better or worse. It does say when everything is going right, a good stand by them.
Yeah, but when someone's unfaithful, I was saying personally, I wouldn't want to be with someone if they prove to be unfaithful, especially when after he said he had stopped, but then he continued doing it anyway while she was pregnant with their kid.
We're talking about many issues here. Let me welcome Stephen Kanne to our show.
I'm here.
Stephen, how are you? The lynching waltz. What's the lynching waltz, man? Welcome.
Well, can you hear me, Mr. Williams?
Of course I can hear you.
Okay, because I had a little difficulty. First of all, I want to thank you so much for inviting me to participate in your radio show, and it's a real honor.
Well, you humble me, you flatter me. It's our honor to have you on. There's so much we want to talk about when you think about the embryonic writing career that began in the early years or around 8, and you wrote a few short essays which were so gory, I won't even share them with our audience. And recently, rereading some of those gruesome little treatises, you conclude that you must be related to Charles Adams. And by the way, as an 8th grader, you sensed that old Charles was an idea for a ghoulish cartoon. Why such ghoulish writing? But you know what? It's the kind of writing that people love. That's why they watch sci-fi.
I'm sorry, I'm having a little difficulty hearing you. I heard something about Charles Adams. I assume you're referring to that picture in our hallway.
Yeah, tell us.
I started writing as a kid.
Yeah, tell us about your writings.
Well, I've always loved writing, and when I got out of college, I was fortunate enough to get an assignment as a military journalist, and that kind of started me off. And then after college, and I was in the service in France. I was a news reporter, And after that, I went to law school, and lawyering involves a whole lot of writing. And after I finished law school and practiced law for over 3 decades and retired, I decided to get back to writing. And at that point in time, I'd been carrying around in my hip pocket something that I wanted to write about all my life, a racist incident of my youth when I was in 8th grade. And so eventually I was able to write about that, and that's the incident which inspired me to write my latest novel, the Lynching Waltz.
So what happened? What happened in the 8th grade?
Right. Well, let me start at the beginning, Mr. Williams. I grew up in a small suburban community, Glencoe, and Glencoe was a bit different. I was in 8th grade in 1947, and Glencoe had a population of about 1,750 people, men, women, and children. And it was much more than a community. It was much like a family, and it was a colorblind family. And all of the children in Glencoe were collectively part of that family. They were Glencoe's children. Now picture this. Here I was in kindergarten, and there were a group of children with me, white, black, Christian, Jews. Nobody paid any difference to those things. We were just a class, and we were together for 9 years, from kindergarten all the way up through and including the 8th grade. These were my classmates. These were my friends. These were my quasi-siblings. We did everything together: scouting, sports, Memorial Day parades, school plays. We visited each other in our homes. Our parents knew one another. We didn't pay any attention to differences in skin color, in religion. That was all irrelevant. We were just a class, and we were all part of Glencoe's children. Now, in 1947, that's 2 years after World War II ended, I was in 8th grade. The year before, we had all attended a dancing class. This was the first time when boys and girls interacted. The little girls would wear Mary Janes and skirts and white blouses, and the boys would wear slacks and sport coats and shirts with ties, and we all wore white gloves. And there was a lady who ran this dancing program, Miss Pocock, and she would play the piano, and we would march around the room, and it was really fun. That was in 7th grade in 1946. In 1947, we were all looking forward to advanced dancing class. It was called fortnightly because it was held every other Friday. And then suddenly, out of the blue, this Miss Pocock, who apparently was a racist, decided that black children could not participate in fortnightly. A small thing? No, not by a long shot. It was a huge thing. It was
Hold that point. We're coming back. What a fascinating story. Aaron in the commentator chair, Stephen Kanne, the Lynching Waltz 2. I'm Armstrong Williams. We'll be back. Don't go away.
Say bye-bye burgers, pass on the pizza, forget the francs. Anytime is party time. Discover Golden Crust's authentic Jamaican-style patties. Beef, chicken, vegetables, soya, spinach, and shrimp. Feast on all great taste sensations. Jerk chicken, oxtail, sliced fish, and much more. Savor the taste of the Caribbean. Only at a Golden Cross near you. A family tradition since 1949. GoldenCrossBakery.com.
For more information on the Armstrong Williams Show, please visit our new website at www.rightsidewire.com. There you can find his syndicated column archive, view live streams, and get your favorite conservative pundits' views on the current issues affecting the American people. From building wealth to foreign policy, stay connected with Armstrong Williams and his colleagues at the all-new www.rightsidewire.com.
Hi, this is Armstrong Williams. What does it mean to be conservative? Freedom of speech, freedom of free enterprise, freedom of assembly, less government, less taxes. As a matter of fact, a flat tax. Everyone should pay proportional tax. It doesn't matter whether you make $100 million or $10,000. Everyone should pay their 10%. Everyone should have something at stake in this American economy. I'm Armstrong Williams, expressing what we mean by conservative traditional values.
Does your school, team, church, or charity need a new fundraiser? Do you need to work out of your home or part-time? Are you a small business that can use an additional revenue stream? Then you need Yellow Llama. Do you need affordable web services or tools to enhance your existing business? Are you a graphic artist who wants to create a revenue stream with your art but not get ripped off? Then go to www.yellowllama.com.
America must change course if we hope to survive and save the American dream for our children and grandchildren. How do we fix Social Security and Medicare? How do we cut government spending? How do we reform health care? How do we simplify the tax code? The Heritage Foundation has a bold plan that tackles these tough problems using common sense solutions that leave partisan politics on the sidelines. Find out how we can save the American dream at savingthedream.org, paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
Hi, this is Armstrong Williams with an opportunity to own a piece of paradise in Nassau, Bahamas. Spectacular land prices, 8,000 square feet, 20,000 square feet lot, affordable prices, hilltop properties with views of the magnificent sea. Just call 242-677-3120 or 3121 or go to info@rightsidewire.com and leave your information.
Where heads of state, sports, entertainment, and political celebrities meet. You're listening to Armstrong Williams.
And welcome back to our guests, Stephen and Aaron in the commentating chair. So, Stephen, tell us what happened in this 8th grade class. Continue.
Yes, okay. First of all, I've been talking about my upcoming novel. It should be out in, roughly 2 to 3 months, The Lynching Waltz. So in 1947, Miss Pocock, who ran the dancing program, announced that black children would be excluded from the 8th grade dancing program. And it didn't sound like much. It doesn't sound like much probably to most people, but it was like an A-bomb going off in our tiny community. As a result, they decided to have a meeting to deal with this racist act. And a meeting was held. We don't know where it was held. We don't know who attended. We don't know what transpired at the meeting, except that we know that a man, a prominent advertising executive, spoke persuasively in favor of canceling Fortnightly, and that as a result of the meeting, Fortnightly was canceled. When the rest of the children heard this, we were devastated, except that we eventually learned that it was canceled because if it had gone forward, our black classmates would have been excluded. And instead then of being saddened, I was proud of what little Glencoe did. And I stuck that incident into my back pocket, and I said to myself, someday I'm going to write about that. And it was that act which inspired me years later to write my novel, The Lynching Waltz. And why is it a novel? Because nobody really knew what happened. Everybody today is dead. And so I had to fictionalize. And so that's the background of The Lynching Waltz. Now, what about the book? The book is filled with real persons, FDR, his wife, General Benjamin O. Davis, Frederick Douglass, Presidents Fillmore and Lincoln, Justice Roger Taney, who wrote that despicable Dred Scott decision, abolitionists like Harriet Tubman, John Rankin, and Garrett Smith, and many, many others. And I'm dedicating the book to General Benjamin O. Davis, Jr., the commanding officer of the Tuskegees. And what about the book itself? How is it formatted? It's formatted in 6 parts. Each part of the book is the story of one of the persons who participates in that meeting at which fortnightly is canceled. The first story is about that prominent advertising executive, Arthur Tate. The second story is about a beloved employee of the Glencoe Parks and Recreations Department who adopted all of Glencoe's children as his own. And interestingly, I have a vivid recollection of an image of him holding the hand of a tiny black youngster, taking him out on the ice skating rink, obviously the little boy's first time on skates, and teaching him to skate. The third story, or part of the book, is the story of Miss Pocock and how she became a racist. I pull no punches. It's ugly, and the reader will discover how miserable, how nauseating racists really are. The fourth story is a story of a brave Tuskegee airman. The fifth story is a story of black history, of slaves, and the difficulties they had, the suffering that they went through. And the last story is the story of the meeting in Glencoe at which the community rejects Miss Pocock's offer to conduct fortnightly, but excluding black youngsters. And the book's message, simple, that racism is anathema, that it's unacceptable, that it's like a damn cancer. Sure, it can go into remission, but cancer in remission can recur, and we must always be vigilant, making sure that that never, ever happens. And the last question I have is, do you think racism is dead today? And I say it is not. It exists today, not as forcefully as it did maybe 10 years ago or 30 years ago, but it's there. And if you don't believe me, you ought to take a look at Richard Rubin's book, Confederacy of Silence, which describes racism in the early 90s in the Mississippi Delta. Or what about Wilcox High School in Georgia earlier this year, where the kids decided to integrate their prom over the objections of their parents? The Lynching Waltz will be out in roughly 2 to 4 months. My name is Steve Kanne, Kanne. I think you'll find it a moving read. Armstrong, would you like me to read part of the book, or?
Listen. What is the lesson from your book in today's world, where you talk about the issues of race? How far do you think we've come?
You know what? I apologize, but
how far?
A lot of difficulty.
I know.
You.
How far do you think we've come?
We've come quite a ways, but we've still got a long way to go.
And why? And where do we need to work?
Pardon me?
Where does the work need to be done?
Well, I think that the best way to combat racism is through education, And also, I think that organizations like the NAACP, they're very, very helpful. And I think books like mine help combat racism. People have to learn about it and learn how evil it is and how destructive it is. And so I think it's mostly a process of education.
Okay, Stephen, hi, this is Aaron here. I read the draft you sent us, and can I just say, sir, well done. It's a very good read. I thoroughly enjoyed reading
did you
through
read the book?
Stuff. Yeah, the draft you sent us, yeah. It was very,
okay,
and like
well,
I said,
I'm really honored that you read the book. You know what I need most of all to get this thing going is I need endorsements, and I need a forward. And, you know, I mean, you can't toot your own horn.
Right, yeah. And
so if you guys have any thoughts about that, I'd, really appreciate it if you could help me.
Okay. I mean, that's not really my expertise, but what I found...
you could talk to people around there.
Oh, of course, yeah. I'll be sure to promote your book, sir. Anyway, what particularly fascinated me about it was, you talk about how you mentioned a lot of the famous people like Eleanor Roosevelt, Thurgood Marshall, Justice Taney, and whatnot, and Lincoln too. And I noticed in the book you actually had dialogues between, these historical figures and the characters. So my question to you, sir, is were these dialogues, or were they just completely, fictionalized based on what you thought the characters
they had to be fictionalized.
Right. So were they just based off like what you knew about the historical figures?
Well,
were they based...
take for example Eleanor Roosevelt. She was a moving force behind the creation of the Tuskegees. Without her, it wouldn't have existed.
Explain that in a little more detail.
Pardon me?
Explain that in a little more detail.
Sure. There was a horrible Army study prepared in 1925, which concluded that blacks were not intelligent enough to fly airplanes. And Eleanor's response to this was poppycock. That's baloney. And so she talked to her husband, and this was a political thing with him because he did not get a lot of the black vote in 1936. And the new election was coming up in 1940. And she said to him, Franklin, you need the black vote. And one of the things you should do is authorize the formation of a black Air Force unit. And he had already made up his mind. And so he easily agreed with her. She was sort of preaching to the choir. He said, listen, I will only authorize this if you go down to Tuskegee, Alabama, and based upon your observations, because she was his eyes and ears, I want you to tell me that blacks can fly. And so she went down to Tuskegee Institute, and she met Charles Chief Anderson, and he took her for a flight. And she reported back to her husband, and this is in my book, that blacks certainly can fly.
How do we get more information on your book?
It won't be out for a couple of months, Armstrong, but when it comes out, I will contact you and I will let you know, and perhaps you can tell your listeners that it's out and available. We're still working on endorsements, and we're still working on a cover for the book, but it will be out, I would say, within 2 to 3 months.
Well, listen, thank you so much for joining us, and we wish you the best. Thank you, Aaron.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure, and nice talking to you, and thank you so much again.
You're welcome. We'll be back with Dr. Garrett Bernard.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right.
For more information on the Armstrong Williams Show, please visit our new website at www.rightsidewire.com. There you can find his syndicated column archive, view live streams, and get your favorite conservative pundits' views on the current issues affecting the American people. From building wealth to foreign policy, stay connected with Armstrong Williams and his colleagues at the all-new www.rightsidewire.com.
Life is full of unexpected changes. Everyone has potential to do wrong. And when they choose to do it, contact the Bucksell Group for your private investigation needs. TheBucksellGroup.com or by phone at 202-243-9746. Whether there's an instance of a cheating spouse, child custody, process service, or security, don't continue suspecting. Get closure so that you can move on with your life. Visit TheBucksellGroup.com now or call 202-243-9746. If you think it's happening, it probably is.
To travelers along the road of life who have fallen asleep at the wheel, to the many who woke up in time to avert disaster and get back on the righteous path. For the ones who crashed and survived and now adhere vigilantly to a virtuous and righteous path. Finally, Armstrong Williams' much-anticipated new book, Reawakening Virtues, gives his insights into these daily challenges and much more. Reawakening Virtues is available in bookstores and at Amazon.com.
Join the millions of Americans who pursue one of our country's finest traditions, from hunting to sport shooting. Since 1871, the NRA has grown as a service organization involved in all aspects of shooting sports and is a proud defender of the Bill of Rights. Join today to begin taking advantage of exclusive membership offers and discounts, including up to $25,000 in insurance coverage. Contact the NRA today. Call 1-800-672-3888 or visit nra.org.
Most Americans simply have never been taught the basics of money management, let alone how to secure their financial future. But there is hope. Financial Education and Literacy Advisors, also known as FELA, does what others don't. FELA teaches financial education. If you'd like more information about providing a financial wellness program for your employees, or a credit-bearing college course in personal finance, or other valuable programs, please visit myfela.com. That's myfela.com, or send an email to info@myfela.com.
Elder Chicks is an exciting part of the fastest growing segment of the population. Women in their 70s, 80s, and older who are mastering the art of a senior life. We're no longer unseen and unheard. We're providing role models for each other and the baby boomers who are fast approaching retirement. Join our virtual community. Hit www.elderchicks.com on your computer keyboard.
Where heads of state, sports, entertainment, and political celebrities meet. You're listening to Armstrong Williams.
Dr. Gary Bernard, we have something unfamiliar to us. It's just you and I today.
Oh, my goodness. What are we going to do?
We're going to take your topic today for a change.
How have you been, Armstrong?
Fine, and you, and how's your wife?
Everybody's doing quite well. Thanks for asking.
How's Josh?
Josh is doing very well. He's working really hard, a lot of hours, but he's doing well.
When is the wedding?
Yeah, that's still up in the air. We'll see. This young lady he's dating happens to be finishing up her 5th-year residency in OBGYN, so things are tight right now. They're busy. They got to get through some hurdles first, I think.
So it's time for all parents and grandparents to make a stand, according to Dr. Gary Bernard. Our children of all ethnicity and cultures are at great risk, and many have already succumbed to the pressures of popular media, reckless purveyors of divisive propaganda, poverty, ignorance, and family disintegration. To name a few individually, we will not be able to reverse these pressures. Together we must. And you're going to talk about how do we start. What brought you to this?
Well, you and I and others on this radio show have been talking about these things for some time, but even last week we were talking more about it. And I remember, I believe his name was Brian, who said, it sounded like he may have been a former Navy fellow, because he said all hands on deck. And it really is a time for us not to be panicky and feel
like there's doomsday right around the corner, but there's an urgency to this, I think, and it comes out in cycles more prevalently. But more recently, we're hearing more and more about all the sort of regression back to racial divide, class warfare, all these different buzzwords that, you know, quite frankly, they're scary. I know we need to pay attention to some of these things, but they're not all that useful. I just would like for more social discourse dialogue about the things that would bring us together. It's an easy thing to say, why don't we just all get along, all those sayings, but how do we get started? Well, we have to start, I believe, with our own world and take care of ourselves and those that are around us that are entrusted in our care, our children, those that we are guardians over, the caretakers of. And I mean grandparents, parents, extended family members, reaching out in church communities, but individually, we must stand for something, and we need to be clear about it, and we need to ask ourselves, is this going to be divisive, or is this healing? Is it adaptive in purpose? And if everyone can just start there, I know there are a lot of things that we have to pay attention to specifically. What does that mean? But I gave in my latest blog, which you're reading part of, this story that was also included in my book about a lighthouse. And, you know, I just came back from the Northeast and went to see many lighthouses, historic lighthouses. And they're there to take care of safety issues for those aboard ships in the dangerous areas. And on the Atlantic coast, it's well known for all the shipwrecks, and it's just a dangerous area in the Atlantic. Many different islands and rough areas where fog sets in. A lighthouse has a purpose. Yet this lighthouse was feeling very insignificant, like it's lost its power, and was feeling afraid because storms, fog, lightning, rocks, high winds, and big waves. And it was afraid for the ships. Well, let's just use the analogy of we, the parent, we, the caregiver, are the lighthouses. We have purpose. It's our light. It should shine and give direction and navigational cues to our children. We can't live their life for them. We can't take care of all of the environment, all the storms, but we're there to be the steady force that always brings them back into safe harbor. And when we start doubting that we can do that, it's all over. They're out there amongst all of these environmental dangers and pressures, the storms, the rocks, the cliffs, and someone's going to be trying to lead them or guide them. And
what does it take to fight the storms? What does it take to minimize the storms? What does it take to overcome? And why is it that some people are always fighting storms and some people seem to be fighting less storms?
Yeah, great questions. I think, number one, we claim our own power to be that lighthouse for our kids, but then we have to start speaking some truth here. Not that we know all of the truth. I'm not saying that, but the truth is many of these storms are not the normal things that our kids have to go through. It is a sort of cottage industry or a culture or a mindset and a popular style of disseminating information that isn't going to bring people back to safe harbor. It leaves them in the big waves. It leaves them confused. And so we have to start identifying that and talking about it. I don't mean in a condemning sort of way, but shine the light on it. It seems like when we're having these difficulties, there are as many, if not more, voices standing up, media and specific people that use the media, that become more divisive. They turn everything inward onto more of this conflict instead of saying, what is it that we know about living peacefully and being respectful human beings and being able to talk honestly, intellectually honestly about what's going on. There are cases where people are being unfairly discriminated against, whether it's gender, race, religion, whatever. That's a fact. We know that. Is that the culture right now? I don't think so. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe someone of a different culture or ethnicity may say it's because I have my culture that I'm denying these things. But it seems like if we're able to sit down and at least talk about it non-defensively with the purpose of coming up with some other options instead of constantly blaming groups, subgroups, things as easy as race. That's such an easy thing to pick on. It's life is much more complex than that. I guess my point is, being the lighthouse is to shine light for our kids, but it's to shine light on these darknesses, these things that don't seem like they're really all that genuine in terms of wanting to bring people together. It seems like it's disingenuous.
You know, what is out there that brings people together that we can latch on to?
Well, I think faith can, but some people, faith in religious beliefs, that can, but some people aren't into that, and I certainly don't want to force that on anyone. So then it may be more, it may be things like, how do we be personally responsible to each other in just an ethical sort of way? How about that? How about treating people exactly the way we would like to be treated, regardless of?
But what if we don't know what it's?
Factors?
What if we don't know what it's like to be treated? What that means?
Well, tell me more about that, because I mean,
some people are accustomed to domestic violence. They're accustomed to their parents yelling at them. They're accustomed to the parents denouncing them, not reaffirming them. That's all they know.
I get that. And those are habits, and those are really entrenched kinds of behaviors. But I think, honestly, that we know that's not right. Even the person who's been in an abusive situation, they stay in it and they keep going back to it and they stay in that cycle. They know it's not right. We know when we watch a playground and someone comes up and takes a ball away from a kid, we know that's unfair. Any little kid knows that. Do we feel helpless because of our exposure to it over and over and over? Maybe so. But we know it's not right. And we've got to start empowering people to not only know these things just don't pass the feel, smell, or other test. We've got to then say, well, then what's going on here? If this isn't right, it needs to be okay to say this isn't right. I don't feel like this is right. And sometimes it's because someone feels like it's a racial bias against them, or a gender bias, or an age bias. It's okay to say that. When that becomes the prominent issue that is floated immediately, then it takes away from ever getting down below that surface, those superficial issues that divide, and help us to start identifying what are people really feeling, thinking, and experiencing, and can we sit down and talk about it? You know this, many people do. When you travel and you sit down and talk with people of different cultures.
Hold that point. We're coming back with Dr. Gary Bernard. This is Armstrong Williams. We're live. 1-866-620-6620. 1-866-620-6620. We'll be back.
Say bye-bye burgers, pass on the pizza, forget the francs. Anytime is party time. Discover Golden Cross's authentic Jamaican-style patties. Beef, chicken, vegetables, soya, spinach, and shrimp. Feast on our great taste sensations. Jerk chicken, oxtail, sliced fish, and much more. Savor the taste of the Caribbean. Only at a Golden Cross near you. A family tradition since 1949. GoldenCrossBakery.com.
For
more information on the Armstrong-Williams Show, please visit our new website at www.rightsidewire.com. There you can find his syndicated column archive, view live streams, and get your favorite conservative pundits' views on the current issues affecting the American people. From building wealth to foreign policy, stay connected with Armstrong Williams and his colleagues at the all-new www.rightsidewire.com.
Does your school, team, church, or charity need a new fundraiser? Do you need to work out of your home or part-time? Are you a small business that can use an additional revenue stream? Then you need Yellow Llama. Do you need affordable web services or tools to enhance your existing business? Are you a graphic artist who wants to create a revenue stream with your art but not get ripped off? Then go to www.yellowllama.com.
Anderson Brothers Bank, a family-owned and operated establishment that blends traditional personal service, local market awareness, and advanced technology to meet the financial needs of its customers. Visit abbank.com or call 843-464-6271 to see how they can assist you with your banking needs. Anderson Brothers Bank, celebrating 75 years of community banking, the way it should be. Stability right in your backyard since 1933.
America must change course if we hope to survive and save the American dream for our children and grandchildren. How do we fix Social Security and Medicare? How do we cut government spending? How do we reform health care? How do we simplify the tax code? The Heritage Foundation has a bold plan that tackles these tough problems using common sense solutions that leave partisan politics on the sidelines. Find out how we can save the American dream at savingthedream.org, paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
Join the millions of Americans who pursue one of our country's finest traditions, from hunting to sport shooting. Since 1871, the NRA has grown as a service organization involved in all aspects of shooting sports and is a proud defender of the Bill of Rights. Join today to begin taking advantage of exclusive membership offers and discounts, including up to $25,000 in insurance coverage. Contact the NRA today. Call 1-800-672-3888 or visit nra.org.
Where heads of state, sports, entertainment, and political celebrities meet. You're listening to Armstrong Williams.
You know, Dr. Gary Bernard, obviously history is a backdrop to what we face today because there's nothing new under the sun. Obviously, do we need to look more to people whose lives seem to work, that they've embraced a faith and a value system and a belief system that despite their setback and obstacles, they find basically that their good days are better than their bad days and they find themselves overcoming? Is it the value system that causes people to struggle? It's the lack of appreciating and respecting family? Is it the fact that we don't understand the consequences of our choices? What is challenging us, especially many of us, has to be something so simple that a child can understand.
I think it's exactly what you just said. That is at the heart of it. We might get more specific if we talk more about it and study it really in depth, but that is the core. It is a value system. We attribute worth and value to things in this world, to ideas, to constructs. And there has to be something that guides us. There are going to be ups and downs, as you just said. There are going to be differences with us. We won't be exposed to the same things others have been exposed to. Yes, we can try to cross those lines and try to expose ourselves to some of these things through travel, talk, discussion, dialogue. But you're exactly right. We've had this disintegration of the family unit all over. It can be seen in more, well, at least a little bit more or a lot more with poor folks, with some specific cultures, perhaps. But it's all over our country and world that these pressures have pulled the family apart. Well, that's the place where we create people, and we instill these guiding principles, these values that keep you on track. It's like the North Star, or it's like any navigational kind of system that is a reference for us. And if you don't have it, and there's a lot of turmoil, you're lost. And you get panicky, and you try different things, and many of them are just not going to work. They're maladaptive, and they always will be. And if we turn on each other, it will be maladaptive. It will not work for us. That's a fact. And we can go back in history and see that every single time.
Why don't we focus on what actually works well that we often ignore? Because sometimes we can just focus on everything that is wrong. We forget to concentrate and celebrate that which continues to work. Talk about that.
We talked about it some before with media. We have become such a technology-driven society, and we have everything at our fingertips, and we are bombarded by this daily. So instead of having these guiding values and principles that help us review our day, for example, and have gratitude. You know, I'm thankful that I had a good day. I wake up, I'm thankful that I'm going to have a good day. I'm going to focus on problem solving, not getting distracted with all these things that are going on around me. It's a difficult thing when we're bombarded by it and overexposed to it. But that is the discipline that we lack. You can come up with all kinds of examples, but we're not going to get to our destination if we're distracted off to the right or left constantly. And we've got to have something that can help guide us to that core area that we all need: health, well-being, a sense of peace in our life, a sense of purpose. And the times I've sat down and talked with people very different with me, and the intent was to just sit and talk, just listen, discuss, ask questions. The more we did that, the less divisiveness we found, and the more problem solving. Hey, what about this? Maybe we will get back on track if we try this. And then we're refocused on outcomes instead of all these distractors. Consequences. What are we even looking for here? We're looking for peace. We're looking for mutuality. How do we treat each other as human beings? How do we get the best out of people? People, we've made long studies of this. Great championship teams and corporations and families do this well. It's not rocket science. It's something that can be taught. But do we hear much about that? We don't. We hear about all of these other kinds of things that are just sort of recklessly thrown out at us constantly that get us distracted. And we start thinking about that. And that guy said that, or that person said that. And wow, they're pretty important people, and they must be right. That's I feel those feelings, so they must be right. Well, we all feel those feelings of inequity, unfairness. That can't drive the train, though. We're constantly going to be doing war with everyone.
What role does our elected officials play in this?
Right now, not much, except to let it keep happening. I mean, sort of reinforcing the public policies, incentivize it, if anything. So I'm pretty disappointed with that across the board. I'm not a big party kind of person, but I do see where leadership has really failed. It's easy to cast stones. Those are difficult jobs. I get that. But if someone's going to step up and lead, you would think they're going to be wanting good outcomes. And I think, for the most part, our leaders that's their intention. But they're distracted by tremendous pressures, some of which have to do with raising money and staying in power and all that kind of stuff that distorts their role. But they can play a big role in it. But public policy, I think, has gone askew, just like our family policies have gone askew.
Well, maybe
We're not
we need
focused on health.
Maybe we need to focus more on our senior citizens who really are wise and have gone through and knows what it takes and can understand, instead of where we have this obsessive focus on young people.
Well, it has definitely become a youth culture. There's no doubt about that, and we've lost a lot of the wisdom from our forefathers and our elderly folks There is no doubt in my mind about that. They've been marginalized, and it's easy to do that in our kind of culture.
Yeah.
Every time I get a chance to speak to someone who's been around a long time, I'm happy to do it because I learn something new every single time. I think we can gain greatly from that. Even our senior statespeople who have been in leadership positions are marginalized these days.
Yeah. What do you do what do you tell your children when they seem to get off track from your teachings? How do you get them back on course?
Well, when it's difficult if you haven't, if you have not established a connection that makes them want to stay connected to you. There's some gains there. It's difficult to teach them. They're not interested in what we have to say. They're more interested in things that they think they would like to be connected with. So you have to start early on, and if you don't, you've got to put a lot of energy in trying to form a meaningful connection. There's no reason to stay in a family, whether you're an adult, as partners, spouses, or whether you're a child, if that doesn't afford you something better than not having it. That doesn't make sense. So we've got to make sure that our family situation is worth something. There are benefits there to be gained, to stay on board, to cooperate, to be part of it. When that's happening, it's easy to teach your kids. You start out early on in teaching them these very basic principles of your job is to learn how to do everything for yourself. My job is to help you do that well because you need to be autonomous, self-sufficient. But that's not the end of the story. You need to learn how to live among other people. So your job also is to learn how to be mutually effective. Get your needs met, but not at other people's expense. When we don't teach those principles, it's real easy to see why we're divided and angry with each other and killing each other. There's nothing to guide us.
You think the violence in this country,
you
think the violence among young people reflect the anger and something deeply has been breached in our society?
Yes. Of course. Absolutely. That's part of the anger. And anger that is, when something becomes chronic, such as these feelings of dissatisfaction, disappointment, anger even, then it becomes hostility. It's more of a clinical, pathological term, I suppose. But this chronic hostility is just right at the surface or blowing almost all the time. People don't feel good. They start thinking they don't have any outlets. They don't have these principles to guide them, get them back on track, and they discharge it. It's a drive reduction system like eating, like sex, like a lot of things. You go without it, the tension builds up, you've got to release the tension. Our emotions are the same way, and if we don't have something to guide it, these things build up and then they explode. And that happens if you're looking at someone's girlfriend the wrong way, or you don't obey your parent immediately and they end up slapping you, or you have some kind of conflict with your neighbor or someone in a bar and you pull out a gun because it's available and you shoot them. These are the ways this stuff is played out or discharged in our life if we don't have other ways to manage and put it in perspective.
Listen,
that takes a lot of training, and we're just not getting that training.
It's always a pleasure talking to you, sir. I always look forward to it, and we've got to have more intimate discussions like this where you can really get to tell your story and talk about the things that you write and blog about. Thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome. I always enjoy it, Armstrong. Have a great day.
All the best.
Armstrong.